Today marks a significant milestone in my life as I find myself in the family home, a place teeming with cherished memories and walls that tell stories of the past. My cat, Roy, is here as well, his enthusiasm palpable as he scampers around, infusing the room with a sense of joy that I can't help but share. This house, the heart of my family's legacy, is where my father realized his aspirations, transforming it into a remarkable estate now valued at $6 million. It stands as a testament to his life's work, a legacy he left for me after his passing. Now, in his absence, my husband is keen to claim a share of this inheritance, arguing that it should belong to both of us. However, I am armed with documents that clearly state my sole ownership. My name is Marilyn, 40 years old, and I am deeply immersed in the digital realm thanks to my career at an online bank, a path that echoes the financial principles my parents instilled in me. They taught me the value of money management and the importance of financial responsibility, lessons that guide me to this day. Despite growing up in affluence, my parents ensured I lived a grounded life. My upbringing was not marked by lavishness. My allowance was modest, our meals were simple, and my education was in a public school, contrary to what one might expect from someone of my financial standing. Yet, rumors of our wealth painted a different picture, leading many to believe my life was a parade of luxury and leisure. Marilyn, with your grand house and wealth, life must be a breeze, right? You must have all the latest gadgets and games. Can we come over and play? Were common queries from peers who envisioned a life for me that was far from reality. I didn't possess the latest toys or gaming consoles, yet the assumption was otherwise, and it seemed like many wanted to befriend me for the perceived perks of my lifestyle. Today, as I stand in this house surrounded by both the tangible and intangible pieces of my heritage, I am reminded of the true richness of my life, rooted not in material wealth, but in the values and memories that shape who I am. Coming from a family with financial means, I often found myself in uncomfortable situations where friends and acquaintances would ask me for money. It made me uneasy as I felt it contradicted the values of self-reliance and discretion that my parents had instilled in me. This discomfort escalated when I found myself in a dilemma after accidentally breaking Emma's gaming console. At the time, I had no money to replace it, which worsened the situation. Around the same period, Barbara, a new classmate, became a part of my life. She inquired whether I had informed my parents about the incident with the console, but fear of disappointing them kept me silent. "I can't tell them. They might get upset," I confessed to Barbara, hoping for her understanding. Regrettably, when she asked me for financial help, I had to decline due to my parents' strict rule against lending money. Apologizing to Barbara was hard, and it made our school interactions awkward. Things took a turn for the worse when Barbara tearfully reacted to my refusal, and soon enough, rumors started circulating that I was unwilling to help a friend despite my family's wealth. Attempts to clarify that I had no spare money were futile. Emma then made a hurtful comment implying that I valued money over friendship. The situation deteriorated further when Emma and Barbara began spreading falsehoods that I owed them money and were refusing to compensate for the broken console. The school eventually intervened and learned the truth, reprimanding Emma and Barbara. However, the rumors continued to spiral, eventually reaching my parents. My father stepped in, arranging a meeting with both families. Despite their apologies, the damage to our relationship was irreparable, and I chose to distance myself from Emma and Barbara. Despite this resolution, I still had to endure their cold stares and whispered comments. The whole ordeal was a painful lesson in trust and the complexities of friendship when mixed with money. That evening at dinner, my dad offered some advice that has resonated with me over the years. He emphasized the importance of being firm in our decisions especially when it comes to financial matters. Marilyn, it's perfectly fine to say no, he advised, his tone warm and reassuring. He also suggested a practical approach for handling persistent inquiries about money. If someone keeps asking, just tell them you need to check with your parents even if you already know you can't lend the money. This wisdom on managing money issues with grace and assertiveness became a cornerstone of my growth. As I matured, I became more selective about the people I allowed into my inner circle, prioritizing character over financial considerations. Post-university, I was keen to keep my professional and personal lives distinct to avoid financial entanglements. These experiences underscored the value of setting clear boundaries in friendships and finances alike, shaping the person I became. By the time I was 32, I met Scott through a mutual friend. Despite our age difference, his authenticity and warmth were immediately appealing, and what started as casual dating soon blossomed into a serious relationship. 3 years later, we celebrated our union with a beautiful wedding, much to my parents' delight. About a month into our marriage, my father suggested inviting Scott over to our place. I had some reservations. Scott was a talkative person, and I feared he might unwittingly divulge sensitive family information. Nevertheless, feeling more secure in our relationship, I decided it was time to introduce him more fully to my family's world. During the visit, Scott was visibly impressed by my family's home, revealing that he hadn't fully grasped the extent of our wealth. While the visit itself went smoothly, Scott's relentless questions about our financial status during our drive home made me uncomfortable, particularly because I wasn't very familiar with the specifics of our family finances myself. A few months later, the situation took a dramatic turn when my mother called to inform me that my father had been hospitalized, an event that came as a shock and added another layer of complexity to our lives. It was a shock to discover that my dad was unwell, especially since I hadn't been aware of any health issues. Reflecting on our last meeting, I remembered noticing that he seemed under the weather, and now guilt and worry overwhelmed me. When my mom and I visited him in the hospital that Saturday, despite his efforts to stay upbeat, it was clear he was struggling. He even apologized for what he felt was a burden on us, which was just so typical of his kind-hearted nature. The doctor's news that he had advanced pancreatic cancer, which had spread too far for surgery, hit us hard. It was hard to grasp how someone as health-conscious as my dad could fall so ill. Throughout his diagnosis, he remained strong, focusing on our happiness rather than his suffering, which brought tears to all of our eyes. Due to hospital regulations, only immediate family could visit, which saddened him as he hoped to create more happy memories with friends at home. This reminded us all of the vibrant life he had envisioned for us. I promised him that I would keep our home a place of joy, even in his absence. This promise became a cornerstone of how I coped with the situation. To honor my dad, I decided to renovate our family home, giving me something positive to focus on during such a difficult period. Scott, always so caring, expressed concern about the extent of my involvement, unaware of the additional challenges I was facing, like issues with our family estate that I had yet to disclose to him. When Scott inquired about my dad's condition, I finally opened up about all the difficulties we were facing. It was a relief to share the burden as I juggled work, hospital visits, and the flood of emotions that came with them. However, tension arose when Scott began to question the financial implications of my dad's illness and the status of the family estate. He even suggested we seek legal advice to prepare for any eventuality concerning my mom, which stirred up painful memories for me. My dad had always had a trusted lawyer, and the thought of diving into legalities at such a time felt incredibly raw and complicated. Scott's cautious approach to finances began to create tension in our relationship. This tension escalated a few months later when my father sadly passed away after a valiant fight against his illness. As we navigated the challenging period that followed, discussions about inheritance began to emerge within my family. I inherited a substantial property, a mansion valued at $6 million, which only heightened Scott's curiosity and involvement. Despite my efforts to keep him at a distance from these discussions, his excitement about moving into the mansion and his persistent questions about financial details took me by surprise. I later discovered that he had spoken to my cousin at the funeral, who had offhandedly mentioned that it would be a waste for such a grand house to remain unoccupied. This remark only complicated matters further. Despite my attempts to make it clear to Scott that the inheritance was mine and not something to be shared, he seemed unwilling or unable to accept this. Our relationship grew increasingly strained. At my father's funeral, Scott was present but disengaged, not assisting with the memorial services or the subsequent legal matters. As we tried to settle back into daily life, Scott shocked me by claiming he had changed the ownership of the family home into his name, presenting legal documents as proof. This betrayal was not only a profound breach of trust, but also a clear disregard for the respect and boundaries within our relationship. Dealing with these inheritance issues exposed deeper problems in our marriage, forcing us to reevaluate our values, the trust between us, and the direction of our relationship. When Scott bluntly suggested that we could continue living as roommates in the house without much financial support from him, and even threatened divorce if I disagreed, I was devastated. The magnitude of his actions and proposals was overwhelming. I pleaded with him to reconsider what he was doing, hoping he would see the emotional and relational turmoil his actions had caused. When Scott made the unilateral decision to change the ownership of our family home without my consent, he claimed he had consulted a lawyer. This revelation escalated our issues to the point where divorce seemed inevitable. I felt utterly betrayed and isolated, compelled to distance myself from the life and home I had shared with Scott. I couldn't fathom why Scott would take such drastic measures. It seemed that his perspective on money had shifted dramatically, impacting his action and our relationship negatively. The situation worsened the next day when Scott demanded the house keys, claiming ownership. His attempt to enter the house was thwarted by security, whom I provided with the legitimate ownership documents that affirm the house was indeed mine, a gift from my father. Upon seeing the proof, Scott was taken aback. He had entrusted a man named Frank to handle the legalities of changing the ownership and had paid him $410,000. Unfortunately, it turned out to be a scam. Frank was nowhere to be found, ignoring all of Scott's attempts to contact him. Scott's frustration soon turned towards me. He accused me of overspending and questioned my understanding of inheritance laws. Despite Scott's attempts to mend our relationship and his suggestions to give our marriage another shot, the trust we once shared was irreparably damaged. I had to ask the security guard to escort him off the property, marking the end of a painful chapter in my life. In the months that followed, I had ample time to reflect on everything that had transpired. This period of introspection helped me understand just how crucial trust and honesty are in a relationship. The ordeal with Scott, filled with deceit and betrayal, taught me to guard against letting financial matters cloud my judgment. During the first memorial service for my dad at our family temple, Scott made an unexpected appearance. Since our divorce, his life had taken a downward turn. He was unemployed and facing financial difficulties. This encounter was a stark reminder of how drastically our lives had diverged since the split. Seeing Scott at my dad's memorial service brought a mix of emotions. The people he had trusted had clearly failed him, and he stood there looking visibly distressed and out of place during such a solemn event. His attempt to apologize, though tearful, unintentionally caused a stir among my relatives. Despite his emotional state, I found it necessary to ask him to leave, and security had to intervene to ensure it was done. This was not only a difficult moment, but also a turning point for me. reinforcing my desire to move forward and leave our shared past behind. I decided it was time to move out of my parents' home, a decision I had been considering for some time. I found a new place to live, severing ties with Scott completely. Meanwhile, Scott continued to visit the property, which my mom and I had transformed into a rental villa. This new venture allowed us to turn a family property into a source of joy and retreat for many visitors. On his part, Scott appeared to be making positive strides. He secured a new job and seemed dedicated to starting anew. Transforming our family home into a rental villa not only fulfilled my dad's vision, but also created a warm and inviting space for guests from various backgrounds. Known for its stunning views and beautiful garden, the villa quickly gained popularity. We hosted a range of events from intimate weddings to large family gatherings. Working alongside my mom on this project brought us closer and filled us with joy. As the villa's success grew, we decided to enhance it further. We added a swimming pool, a cozy outdoor lounge, and a playful area for children. Each new addition made the villa even more appealing, turning it into a beloved destination for relaxation and celebration, symbolizing a new chapter of growth and happiness for us. Our dedication to ensuring that our guests had a fantastic experience at the villa paid off, as it quickly became a favored destination for those seeking a peaceful retreat and memorable experiences. This project was more than just a business venture. It was about fulfilling my father's dream and creating cherished memories for everyone who visited. Taking care of the villa's garden brought me immense joy and satisfaction. Transforming our family home into a vibrant place where people could gather, have fun, and create lasting memories filled me with pride. I could almost sense my father's pride looking down on us, seeing his vision come to life. This venture not only realized his dream, but also provided us with financial stability and a newfound sense of freedom. Throughout this journey, I learned valuable lessons about trust, finance, and the strength required to carve out my path, independent of past challenges. This process of self-discovery taught me that facing difficulties can strengthen and motivate one. From friends, I heard updates about Scott, who seemed to be turning his life around by finding meaningful employment and learning from his past errors. Knowing that he was also making positive changes brought me a sense of calm, realizing that both of us were advancing and maturing in our ways. My father's vision became a catalyst for growth, not just for my mom and me, but for every guest who visited the villa. It turned into a hub of joy and celebration, a sanctuary where people could forge lasting memories. The success of the villa stands as a tribute to my father's vision, embodying the values of resilience and diligent work. Through this endeavor, we've created much more than just a place to stay. The villa has become a beacon of happiness, a place for crafting memories, and a testament to the idea that dreaming big and working hard can lead to remarkable outcomes.